understanding celebrity and the famous and the very big difference between the two. That is what we're talking about today. Okay, so what is the difference between celebrity, even big celebrity, and the famous? Aren't they interchangeable? Well, it's certainly true that a lot of us do use those words interchangeably, but as is the case with all such situations, they're different words for a reason. Now, I'm not here to be an apologist for celebrities, but celebrity is a business, and celebrities, for the most part, work very hard. They do not have an easy start, and they perform an enormous service to the community, providing creative, artistic, and incredibly original renderings of the human temperament and art that really benefits all of us. I think we've all enjoyed going to a performance, a play, a movie, a concert, an art gallery. The list goes on. It really takes you out of yourself, and it's perfectly understandable and reasonable that those people, and right, that those people ultimately can become celebrities and even big celebrities. But as I say, it's not easy, and they have to pay tax, and they don't have an easy start most of the time, and it takes a long time. And of course, as the saying goes with artists, some of them are really only appreciated once they're dead, which is sad, and their paintings get much higher prices and valuations. But, we have celebrities, not just artists. We have singers, we have actors in the playhouse, but also movie stars. And that basically makes up celebrities and the concept of celebrity. And I think a couple of examples you might find very interesting. So, for example, one key line that you can draw between several celebrities from, say, the Sutherland sisters of the 19th century, in the second half of the 19th century, the Sutherland sisters, through to Dorothy Dix, or Elizabeth Gilmer, as was her real name. Dorothy Dix was the mask, and today the Kardashians, which is a group of sisters who do modeling and marketing and a whole range of other things. The reality is that these are perfect examples of celebrities. Now, in the case of Elizabeth Meriwether Gilmer, who was a columnist, she used the pseudonym Dorothy Dix. And Dorothy Dix is the name of a question that, you set up in advance, and it allows you to sound tremendous. So you give a speech, then go to questions, and you prime someone with a Dorothy Dix question, and they hit you with it, and you can do another pithy little addendum to your speech, and it sounds great. That's what a Dorothy Dix is. And so her name is remembered at the moment, she wrote in the 50s, to this day, with giving her pseudonym to the name of a question. The Sutherland sisters are not well remembered, although there's some material out on there. Their father became a preacher, but they were all quite beautiful, and they tried to sell hair oil, I think. But their sort of fashion, fashion changed with the flappers of the early 1900s. And so people forgot them, and they never got married. I think one of them one did get married later in life, but it sort of all fell apart because the father went off and became a preacher, and there wasn't much thought to the girls post their adolescence and what they would do long term. And I think they tried to get a movie going, but then that didn't work, and the last one died in 1946. Aside from that, you had, say, Annette Kellerman, the Australian, who was a very beautiful woman, very sporty woman as well. And she was in a film called The Mermaid, I think, in 1905, very early on. And she was a celebrity, but her celebrity didn't translate, I think, to the talkies, right? So it didn't translate from sort of silent film onwards, I don't think. But she became very well known for sort of promoting health. And there's still an Annette Kellerman Centre up in Queensland, actually. But if you look up Annette Kellerman, wow, celebrity like no other. She was incredibly well known. And that's what celebrity is. It means you're incredibly well known. But look, fame and the famous, that's something different. That is another level. And we're talking orders of magnitude. We're not talking incremental. We're talking 10x, 100x, 1,000x. Some of you probably haven't heard of the Sutherland sisters, or of Annette Kellerman, or of Dorothy Dix. You may have heard that name, but you didn't know it was a columnist called Elizabeth Meriwether Gilmer. We all know who the Kardashians are now, but we didn't a while ago. And the zeitgeist does move on, right? It does. The zeitgeist moves on, even with social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter. The list is endless of new media forums that have helped these sorts of people, but it is nonetheless celebrity. Now, fame and the famous, that's something different. So there are some people, certainly with English surnames, which aren't so English as well, I suppose, and they get known for hundreds of years and even thousands of years. Their names are so famous that it shouts down the centuries, even past a millennia, past 1,000 years, right? And there's several I could mention. And they, even if they end up hiding for 400 or 500 years out of public life, people know who they are, right? Because they are famous, super famous in a way that celebrity is not famous in the same way, right? And there's several very interesting examples of that. But you may have seen the movie Troy, which is the story of the Iliad by Homer, the shadowy 8th or 9th century BC Greek poet who wrote about the Trojan War, which we think was around 1184, that sacking of Troy. There was multiple sackings of Troy, as Heinrich Schliemann found out, and they found one. They found one treasure, and I think it's still in Russia now, but that's from an earlier age than the late Bronze Age collapse, as it's known. So it wasn't the Troy of Helen, Priam, and Hector, and Paris. So Helen was the Greek queen, wife of Menelaus, who was inveigled away by the young Paris, son of Priam, brother to Hector, and of course Agamemnon, who was the brother. He was the king of Mycenae, Agamemnon, son of Atreus. And Agamemnon, who was the brother of Menelaus, decided he was known as a great king. And we know that from the Hittite annals, from Boazkoi. Agamemnon was a great king. So if Menelaus called on him, then you were in trouble. And sure enough, the Greeks teamed up and went off to Troy to get Helen back, ostensibly, although they were very interested in trading routes as well. But the point is that fame, that created some very famous people, and Achilles and Patroclus came out of that, and obviously Odysseus, who was also the hero of the Odyssey, which was the next book of Homer's after the Iliad. And we even know King Nestor, who actually was played by a very good British actor, who was also in Gladiator, and he also played Inspector Morse in some radio. But as is the way with celebrities, I can't remember his name, but he's brilliant. He's actually in the movie Notting Hill as well. But he was King Nestor, the old king, and Brian Cox played Agamemnon. Very well, by the way. Brilliant. Should have won an Oscar for it. And you had Orlando Bloom as Paris, and you had Eric Bana as Hector, and as Priam, you had Peter O'Toole. Sorry, I was about to say Laurence Olivier, but it was Peter O'Toole. But this is actually a very good way of... So I can't remember all the names of the actors, even though some of them are big celebrities, but I can remember the characters because they are truly famous, right? They have truly famous names that shout down the centuries, past millennia, past lots of tens of centuries. And there's actually a very good discussion between Sean Bean, who plays King Odysseus, and Brad Pitt, who plays Achilles, and Patroclus at the start of the movie, Troy, about the whole concept of what the war is. And Achilles, who really doesn't like Agamemnon at all, and that just gets worse as the movie goes on, is in no mind to come and help Agamemnon or Agamemnon's brother Menelaus. He thinks the whole thing is ridiculous. And Odysseus correctly points out this has got nothing to do with a domestic dispute. This is a gigantic war, all right, Western war that will be remembered for thousands and thousands of years. And sure enough, it has been, to the point I can remember the characters, the Greek characters. I can't remember all the actors, even though I like some of them in particular. I think they're very good. So Troy is actually a very good description of fame and celebrity and the very stark difference between the two, because it shows nicely how historic fame is and how fleeting celebrity is. And this is actually a good thing for celebrities because it is a job and you want to be able to put it down at some point and let the zeitgeist move on. Celebrity becomes a problem if you get overtaken by drugs and alcohol and debts and ego and psychological issues to do with the notoriety and being so well known. So being able to lay down celebrity, put it on and off is a good thing, which is why people use pseudonyms and different characters, so on and so forth. Fame, let me tell you, you can't put fame down. Once you've got a famous name, that's it. And that's it for centuries and millennia. And you don't get helpfully forgotten like Annette Kellerman or Dorothy Dix, Elizabeth Gilmer. or the Sutherland sisters, you don't get forgotten. Your name comes up again and again and again because you come from a famous family, a famous name, and that is orders of magnitude bigger than celebrity. And I would counsel people, celebrities, even big celebrities, do not chase fame and being famous. Because as hard as celebrity is, fame and being famous is another level. And celebrity is quite hard enough.